皆さんこんばんは。
Good evening, everybody. My name is Shingo Kobayashi of the Peace Boat Disaster Relief Center. Thank you for joining us today for our emergency report from our support relief programs in Ukraine. Peace Boat Disaster Relief, or PBV for short, is an organization which provides disaster relief and humanitarian aid to people in challenging situations, mainly as a result of disasters, both here in Japan and around the world. Recently, on March 16, there was a major earthquake which occurred off the coast of Fukushima Prefecture here in Japan, particularly in the Tohoku region in the northeast of the country. Coming so soon after the March 11 anniversary of the 2011 great earthquake and disaster, this was quite traumatic for many people. We would like to extend our sympathies to those who were affected by this recent earthquake. PBV is now active in the town of Yamamoto in Miyagi Prefecture, providing emergency support, particularly in regards to roofing repairs and so on for those whose homes were damaged by this earthquake. Today's event is an opportunity to together consider the very extremely challenging situation which is still continuing in Ukraine today. It has been just over 1 month since the Russian military invasion began on February the 24th. However, no ceasefire has yet been reached, and the destruction of cities, the loss of lives, and the livelihoods of many people is continuing. The number of people displaced both within and fleeing from Ukraine to outside of its borders has reached more than 10 million people, according to the United Nations. And this means that approximately 1 in 4 of every Ukrainians has been displaced as a result of this war. PBV, with the cooperation of our partner organization, Peaceboat, has recently launched an emergency relief fund. So far, more than 700 people have supported and cooperated with us in this project, as well as many people who have donated on the street, as you can see in these photographs in our collections here. And many people from here in Japan and around the world are sending our thoughts to the people of Ukraine. We have now collected around 9 million yen, and we would like to use this opportunity to thank you so much for your generous cooperation and support. We will continue to be fundraising for emergency relief for Ukraine from now, and particularly as it is anticipated that this support will be needed in the long term, we hope that many of you will be able to support us in these continued efforts as well. PBV has started our support activities working in cooperation with partner organizations, particularly in the neighboring Romania, Patria, or the Romanian Peace Institute, as a partner. On March the 19th, 3 PBV staff members were dispatched from here in Japan to Romania to together deliver aid and to survey the local situation, the needs, and consider what kind of future support will be required and possible as well. Today in this event, we will be connecting together with our staff members who are currently in Romania to share with you their what they have seen and learned and so on from their visits at the moment. So thank you for joining us for this short notice event today. In consideration of the potential impact on those displaced both in Ukraine and outside the country, some of the information on specific place names or locations may not be shared in full during today's event, and we thank you for your understanding in this. Thank you also to the many people who shared questions or messages of support in advance of today's event. We have made an attempt to try and include the content of these questions as much as possible in the preparation of today's reports, but we ask you for your understanding that we may not be able to answer each of the questions which were submitted. So thank you for your understanding on that. Today, we will be hearing from 2 of our Peaceboat disaster relief staff members, Executive Director UESHIMA Yasuhiro and the International Projects Coordinator SUZUKI Ikuno. And because they are joining us from Romania, there may be some connection issues during their presentations today, but we thank you for your patience if such issues arise as well. And so, Mr. Ueshima, over to you.
皆さん、こんにちは。こんにちはでいいですかね。こんばんはですね。ごめんなさい。こんばんは。ピースボート災害支援センターの上島と申します。 本日はですね、YouTube 配信で皆さん見ていただいているというふうに伺っています。ありがとうございます。今夜の8時だというふうに思いますので、ちょっと私の方からはですね、少し今回時間を1時間、私たちの方から1時間使って皆さんに、ルーマニアの状況や、ウクライナの、話を皆さんにお伝えできればというふうに思います。
share the topic of Ukraine.
ごめんなさい、報告させていただくのが、
First of all,
私、上島と、コーディネーター、国際
today we'll have two people
報告をさせていただ
who
きます。
will be talking.
ではですね、少しこの写真を見ていただきたいんですけれども、
If you can see the pictures
ルー
now,
マニアとウクライナの国境
this is the border of Romania and Ukraine.
左上の方にウクライナ
On
の
the
国
left-hand
と
side,
国旗と
you can see the flags of Ukraine and European Union and the flags of Ukraine and Romania. So people coming from Ukraine is entering Romania. From my part, I would like to report about what's been happening in this past month since the invasion. On February 24th, I think there had been reports in Japan as well, but there had been discussion about the Russian military invading, and it actually started on 24th. And in Japanese government has announced the warning alert. And after that, the ceasefire negotiations has been started, but it has not been in agreement yet. And so we decided to collect information in collaboration with the Patrio Romanian organizations, and we've been working closely together. And the Japanese government has announced to receive Ukrainian displaced in Japan, but there had been attacks on humanitarian corridors in Ukraine, and there has been many ceasefire negotiations, but it's not been agreed yet. As Japanese government on March 11, there had been about emergency budget that's been delivered to Ukraine. And as PBB, from March 7, we have started launched fundraising drive. And as Kobayashi introduced, we have about 9 million yen of donations in total. On March 19, 3 of us had been dispatched to Romania since until now. To explain briefly the geography, this is by OCHA, one of the UN organizations. It's describing in the refugees. As of February 27, 8,000 people has fled from Ukraine to neighboring countries. The Ukraine is this white area on the map. And on the left-hand side, there are Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, where we are doing the research, and neighboring countries, Moldova. There's a red line on a black dot, and that's the area where flare-ups of hostilities are happening. As time passes, in March 15, the people, number of people who's displaced internally, displaced who cross international borders are about 3 million. and the number of people who's been displaced internally also is increasing, which is 1.9 million people. The neighbor country, Poland, over 1.8 million people have been evacuated because the language are very similar between Poland and Ukraine. And students often go to Poland to study as well. So there are many people who's been evacuated to Poland. I think it's as of yesterday, as of 28 March, more and more places have been attacked within the country. And I think the day before yesterday in Lviv, the west side, the attack has been started. And over 3.9 million people have fled outside of the country, and 6.5 million people have stayed displaced internally. However, people who's been internally displaced, it's officially announced as 6.5 million people, but there are people who's evacuated to, for example, people's relatives' housings, and those are not counted in this number. And so there are more number. And to compare about Ukraine, Romania, Japan, this is the table. In Ukraine, there are 44 million people, and the population is not as many compared to Japan. And people who's been displaced, the number is shown on the graph. It's about 6.4 million people in Ukraine. In Romania, people who came to Romania and fled to different third country is not included. And the reason is because the language is different between Romania and Ukraine. And so as of now, who's staying in Romania is about 510,000 people. Japan has also accepted refugees from Ukraine. As of now, we have 204 that's been reported. The area of the country, Ukraine is quite big in land. The GDP of Ukraine is about 50 billion US dollars in Japan. In Ukraine is 1.5 billion. And in Romania, it's about 2.4 billion US dollars. And so economically wise, we also would like to support Ukraine. Capital in Romania is Bucharest. As I mentioned about the language, in Ukraine, people speak Ukrainian, or in some areas they speak Russian. In Romania, Romanian is spoken, and so the language is different. So the challenges happen in terms of language as well. The currency is different as well. I would like to Romania as a transit country, we have about 138,000 Ukrainian citizens who came to Romania, and 87,000 people went to third country from there. And second to Poland in number of refugees. The number of people who's been evacuated in Poland is the highest, and it's the second in Romania. As for children, we have 7.5 million children, and 4.3 million children have been displaced, and 1.8 million have fled to country, and another 2.5 million has been internally displaced. That's the situation of the children. And children here means 18 years old or younger. The situation within Ukraine, for example, about the currency, it has been very difficult to exchange money to when they go outside of the country with poor rates and complicated procedures. Yesterday, we tried to exchange money from Ukraine to Romanian money. We weren't able to do that. So we announced that we are accepting Ukrainian currencies, but in real situation, there are times where people are not able to exchange money into local currency to use them. As a Romanian government, they operate different refugee centers. And as I think you may know, but there are restrictions on people who are able to evacuate from the country, and male adults are not able to evacuate from the country. And so most of the people, refugees who's evacuated, are mothers and children. And when those people are evacuated, there are many challenges as well, which I would like to share afterwards. And as a Romanian government, they are guaranteeing access to education, healthcare, housing, and employment in Romania up to 1 year without complicated procedures. The medical care is free for now. The situation in Romania also changes in the needs. It's been 1 month since the war has started. Beforehand, before the beginning of the war, the civil organizations were very active, and so support that they had been doing towards people who's been entering the country were very active. And so they were really ready to accept the refugees, and many citizens were actively participating. The refugees don't usually spend time in an evacuation area in a public space for a long time, but rather they stay and they are hosted by families, small families, to stay together in a small housings. There are matching website where they are able to look for and locate those refugees to these families. And usually maximum by 72 hours, they are able to spend the time in those families. And the government are trying to avoid concentration in one specific area. And many transit happens through Romania to other countries as well. What has been changing since then is that many volunteers have been supporting these refugees, but this has been a very heavy burden on the volunteers as well. And also there are challenges about budget and financially sustainable. And in the beginning of start of the relief, there were people who were able to get more information or had more money or had connection with other European countries. Those people were able to migrate to third countries. But recently, because the war has been worsening, people who was trying to stay in Ukraine became really dangerous where they were staying. So they had to flee, and more people are increasing. And because those people came to Romania and are not able to go to third countries, so they're staying within Romania. And this situation, this is also happening in Moldova as well. And this is the number of people who's evacuated to Moldova is increasing, and they are also coming into Romania as well. And from now, I would like to pass my mic to Suzuki, who will report.
Thank you very much. As introduced, my name is Suzuki Ikuno of the Peaceboat Disaster Relief Center. So I'd like to speak about our visit to Romania this time. And so we would like to share about the situation of our visit and our members who were there. Sorry, it seems that we have some connection issues with Ms. Suzuki. We are just making sure that we can hear properly. So we had 3 members within PBB's visit at this time. It was Mr. UESHIMA Yasuhiro, who you've just heard of from. Ms. Suzuki, sorry, we have some issues with your connection. It seems that you're cutting in and out a little bit. If we can just check your connection once again, if you can speak a bit more. Perhaps we can try if you turn your camera off and we can see if the sound will come through a little bit more clearly. Is this a little bit better? Yes, it's a little bit of an improvement. Let's see how we go. And if it's a little bit difficult to hear, we'll let you know again. So on March the 19th, we departed from Japan and arrived here in Romania. And we have been visiting various places in our stay since then with 3 members as well. If we can go to the next slide. And so we visited several different places. We first of all arrived in the capital of Bucharest. And so from there, we visited the other places which are illustrated on this map here as well. Ms. Suzuki, sorry, it does seem like it's quite difficult to hear you at the moment. Do you have a microphone or some earphones that you could use to maybe make the sound a little bit clearer? If you can just hold on with us one for a moment, we will be making the connection a little bit improvement. We are just checking in. So Ms. Suzuki was sharing with us the different locations that the 3 staff members from PBV visited in Romania, what kind of people they were able to meet. Let's see if it's a little bit better now, and we'll just try and improve the sound. Yes, we have a big improvement now that we've changed the microphone. Thanks once again. So from our arrival in the capital of Bucharest, we first from there went to Cluj-Napoca, which is the 2nd largest city in Romania. The other places we were able to visit were those located in the border crossing areas. We can see here the 2 locations which are in the northern part of this map here as well. Then we returned back to the capital, and yesterday we also visited the port city of Constanța. During our visit this time, we are working together, during this visit and in our broader support programs with an organization called Patrir, which is based in Cluj-Napoca. Patrir stands for the Peace Action Training and Research Institute of Romania. And we have launched our relief efforts this time together with Patrir. Patrir is has been working for many years on peace building, peace education related issues as well. And they are also a fellow member of GPAC, the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict, which our sister organization, Peaceboat, is also a member of. So it is through this GPAC network connection that we have been able to partner together. Since the current war has begun, Patrir has been active since immediately after the invasion began on assistance, including humanitarian support to refugees who are arriving in Romania, also support to civilian populations who are still in Ukraine, and also preparation for the potential future influx of refugees to cities in Romania as well. Includes Napoca. Patrir has been cooperating very closely with the local authorities, including the city hall, and conducting various coordination as well. And this is being done under the umbrella of All for Ukraine, which is a broad platform and network of different organizations and individuals who are involved in the various humanitarian relief and refugee support activities. And in the photograph, we can see those members with the yellow vests are the members of Patrir who have been hosting us during this visit. And on this slide here, we can see some images from the Bucharest North train station. So from here, we would like to introduce you to some of the different places that we have visited during our stay in Romania this time as well. This is the largest station, or one of the large stations in Bucharest, which is one of the arrival points for people who are coming from Ukraine as well. For people with Ukrainian passports or ID cards, the train's transportation, both for arriving in Romania and also traveling domestically within the country, and other public transportation is also provided for free. So for those people who are arriving by train from Ukraine, many of them are utilizing this Bucharest North station or Gardă Nord. So we can see, for example, at these arrival points, we can see, the presence of displaced persons and refugees, but other than these different arrival points, such as the airport, the border crossings and the train stations and so on, perhaps the presence of the displaced persons is not so visible. Many people in Japan might have an image of a large evacuation center, for example, but because the impacted people are more dispersed, shall we say, throughout the community, throughout the country, and so on. It is these transportation hubs, which are the main places where it's very visible, the presence of refugees from Ukraine. Once arriving at the train station, people, as they heard from Mr. UESHIMA, for example, first people, were coming in their own private cars, for example, which is also people who have, the resources to travel themselves. But as the conflict is becoming more protracted, people who were perhaps, departing later have been coming by train and so on as well. Upon arrival at the station, we can see these different volunteers providing language support, providing places for having a meal, also children's support services, and also there are many people who are coming together with their pets. So as we can see in this photograph as well, support for people with pets arriving as well. At the same time, within the people who have been displaced, of course, the majority of people who are also crossing the border are women, children, or also the elderly. So there are many different challenges, first of all, in regards to accessing accurate information, and also these people perhaps being in more of a vulnerable position in terms of being exposed to different criminal activities and so on. Ensuring that they have the proper support being provided from a very early stage is very important. So we can see the different volunteers providing, for example, accommodation, health centers, consultations, and so on for various issues as well. If we can proceed to the next slide. We would like to introduce a short video we have with a staff member from a local citizens organization called Funky Citizens, who are active at the train station, and we would like to show that to you.
Okay, so we are here in the main train station in Bucharest, Romania, where refugees from Ukraine keep coming in for the past 3 weeks. They come from the northeastern part of the country, which has the border with Ukraine. They are running from war, and here they are welcomed by volunteers. There are two types of volunteers: the simple ones that have a green vest on and they help with everything that's necessary, and the other ones that can translate, because this is one of the challenges, the language barrier. We cannot speak with them because they only understand Russian and Ukrainian, and not so many people in Romania speak this language. So these volunteers, the ones with the orange vests, are the most precious human resource. So what happens here in the train station is that they get off the train, and then we try to figure out how we can help them. Some of them, they already have a plan. They know they want to go to Western Europe, to Paris, to Budapest, to Poland, and we try to get them a plane ticket, a bus ticket, or even a train ticket, and help them stay for 1 or 2 or 3 nights in Bucharest. We work with the authorities and we transport them to a place where they can sleep and change their clothes and take a shower. So really basic stuff, but they can find here everything that they need to survive, which is sanitary products, food for their kids or for their pets, because many of them, they come with cats, they come with dogs, they come with their animals. It's so lovely.
Thank you very much. And so now we heard the voice of one of the staff members, a volunteer working at the Bucharest North Station. From there, we move to Cluj-Napoca, the second largest city in Romania. We would like to introduce some of the situation here. This is the city where Patria is based. And this is showing a different facility that was set up as a transit hub for people who are in between changing trains. So between the two trains, they can come here to rest, to have a hot meal, to gather different necessary information and so on during their transport. And here we can see, of course, there are volunteer interpreters who are there. There are different facilities provided for children to rest and play and have some respite, and also some places where people can collect food packages which have been prepared for refugees as well. And we would like to show, if we can just come back to this slide and share a little bit more about this. So within Romania, at the moment, there are also at the moment, the same access to different social welfare facilities and so on is being provided for people who are fleeing from Ukraine as to Romanian citizens as well. One is, for example, there are government subsidies provided to host families who are hosting refugees, also different provisions for accommodation and also for access for temporary accommodation at hotels. And for those people who are planning to stay for a longer term in Romania, there is, for example, students have, or young children have started to attend Romanian schools. Also, there are also some different online education facilities. So children who are based in, or who are now physically located in Romania, can connect online to their Ukrainian schooling as well. And so there are various different services which are starting to be put together more for people who are currently in Romania, having fled from Ukraine. There are also, for example, different employment opportunities which are being sought for people who have fled from Ukraine, and also childcare facilities for people whose parents are, or particularly mothers, are working. At the Cluj-Napoca train station, there we also had an interview with someone who's working in the temporary shelter facilities there, so we would like to introduce their voice in a video now.
In this area, we arrange a transit center for the refugee from Ukraine, where they can stay between two trains, have a soup, tea, coffee, and a place to rest, and their children can play and draw and do activities that give them other ideas instead of war.
If the number of people arriving is decreasing?
In this moment, no.
Oh, okay.
It's constant, around 100 per 24 hours.
I see.
But was in the peak was 600.
So how many people can you accommodate?
Here is 60.
Oh, 60?
Yes, in the other room 20.
But are you inside yet? Because my colleagues are expecting you. So there's some people there that, well, they just know. So you don't need to stand outside. If you want to, you're welcome.
From the city hall. But he's not less poor because he has that money. So in that situation, we come to help them to have hot meals, one per day, and we don't do social inquiry, enquete. Now, who came,
Whoever comes receives.
it's not, for me, it's not important because he looked nice dressed.
Thank you very much. And so now from Cluj-Napoca, we travel to the border areas where people are crossing from Ukraine. We would like to speak first of all about the city of Sighetu Marmației. Here in the picture, we can see this is, the border to enter Romania. We can see the tent on the left with the large blue windows, the circles you can see here. These are known as blue dots. This is an initiative known as that. We can see here, this is where the UNHCR, UNICEF, and so on, and various other support and relief organizations, local authorities, and so on, are operating this facility together to provide as a one-stop provision for information, consultation, and so on for people who are arriving at the border area. Here as well, there are rest areas for children and families and so on as well. There are many different other organizations who are there as well, also providing different free SIM cards, for example, for refugees who are arriving and so on. And when we can go to the next photograph, which shows going more towards the Ukraine side, this is the bridge. We can see the very large wooden bridge in the crossing between Ukraine and Romania. And as was introduced just before as well, men between the ages of 18 and 60 are in principle or are not permitted to depart from Ukraine. So we can see that it is mostly women and children, or also older people, who are crossing at this border as well. When we arrived already, it was a little bit warmer here, but during the time, even when it was still snowing and winter, we heard that there were also men attempting to cross the border to Romania by swimming across the river, even in these freezing temperatures. The area here, it is over several mountain ranges and so on, even in Romania. This is not necessarily a very economically well-off area. However, the local citizens, local community are putting together all of their different resources and so on to welcome and host the refugees who are arriving. Here we can also see one of the things which really leaves a very big impression, of course, here is the soft toys, the children's toys or stuffed animals, which are lined up and decorated across the bridge on either side. These are things which were left there. Well, at the time, of course, that the invasion began, there were many families and children who were being forced to flee. And actually one of the border police in Romania, who is on the right in the center of the photograph, when they were thinking with the local community about something to do for the children crossing the bridge. And so there were many children who, of course, had to flee without their favorite toys and so on. So they started an initiative to leave these stuffed animals for the children arriving. At first, they were giving them directly by hand, but of course, this is something, a little bit nervous for the children as well. So they decided to leave them along the bridge so children can pick up the toy that they like as they are arriving in Romania. At the same time, because fathers are not able to cross the bridge together as well. So also many scenes, for example, where Ukrainian fathers were bringing their children to the border and asking Romanian volunteers on the other side to meet or to collect their children. And even the stories of families having to entrust their children to people, volunteers on the Romanian side, who they perhaps even did not meet before as well. To get to Marmitia is a city, of course, close to the western part of Ukraine. But for many of the people who are fleeing from the conflict, they are coming from the eastern part of Ukraine as well. And so we are seeing that, children, more relatives, more families coming as well. So even families who have, 15 people, 15 relatives or friends of friends and so on, staying with them, seeking refuge as well. And the next slide we would like to share with you is another video actually as well. Before I come to the end of my presentation, I would like to share a message on behalf, the NGO Peace Boat conducts global voyages as its major project, and Peace Boat actually has had many Ukrainian crew members over the years, including our captain, or Peace Boat's captain, who is from Ukraine. We were able to meet with Captain Viktor Alimov, who is Peace Boat's voyage captain. He is originally from Odessa, and following the conflict, he is, since 2 years ago, has been in the city of Constanza together with his wife and 9-year-old granddaughter in the port city. And we were able to meet with him during our stay in Romania, so we would like to introduce his message now.
Greetings, my dear Japanese friend. Konnichiwa. I'm Captain Victor, working for Peace Boat, and first of all, I would like to say many thanks to Japanese people and personnel to Peace Boat. It happened to me, I was in Japan on board the ship on the time when the first earthquake in Fukushima happened, and I was a witness how Japanese people help each other and support each other in a difficult situation. This reminds me and makes me coming into my mind that now we have the same support and help from a Japanese in a difficult situation as well. Many thanks and gratitude to Yokohama from Odessa. Thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much. And UESHIMA will now talk about Emergency Relief Plan, or PBB. I would like to report as challenges still remain in the site, there are things that we would also like to work on. The time is limited, so I will talk in brief. We are planning in total 6 plans. And within Ukraine, there are 3. Within Romania, we have 3. I'm just going to briefly introduce those. Within Ukraine, there are primary shelters and still more is needed. And within the west side of Ukraine, the refugees are increasing. And we need temporary shelters to accept those people. And number of people are increasing. So we need to renovate those areas. So we're working together with Patriot. And the second one is that we don't have enough medical supplies. On the right bottom, there's the president of Patriot. We are trying to deliver medical supplies to Ukrainian hospitals. And we're working as a supplier to those hospitals, delivering medical kits. And we are also working in collaboration with Patriot, so we would like to continue that. Another support is the food are decreasing. These packages, including food, is delivered in distribution sites. However, there are many people who is requesting these food supplies. And until now, these have been supported purely by donations. And these packages that's on the picture is roughly 2 weeks of supplies. And in one day, about 3,000 packages are delivered to families. And so as food is coming in, these are already distributed. And so we're lacking the resources. We have a movie from Alex.
Hello, my name is Alex, and I'm volunteering in Humanitarian hub in Chernihiv region. I am refugee. I was evacuated from European city that is under attack of Russian troops, and now I help Ukrainian people to live with this conflict. And every day, our humanitarian hub send help to other cities that are under attack. And as a refugee, I understand what is needed and what is difficult for people that are living in these cities. For many foreigners, it was surprising that most of the cities now without electricity, without water supply, without any food. And people are living for weeks and weeks in shelters, and they can't even leave them to find some food. And that's why it's so necessary to help them and to provide them some food. And we are very grateful to those countries and those organizations who sent humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And we also ask, don't forget about this conflict, because this conflict would last for weeks or even months. And we always need canned food, we always need long life-term products, because it's very difficult to deliver now them to those cities, and people in those cities are very in need of them. Thank you for your help.
As you can see, the situation in Ukraine is serious. And within Romania, the challenges are also there. First of all, people who's been evacuated we need legal support for those who came to Romania without anything to any belongings with them. There are people who don't even have passports, and in that situation, it's very difficult for them to transit to another third country. And so we would like to facilitate access to information on day-to-day basis, or legal assistance, and also language support, because the language switches within Ukraine and Romania. So that's what we would like to do. And also support to those in need of continuous medical treatment. One of the organizations is supporting children with diagnosed with cancer. And there are, of course, patients who need continuous treatment of cancer. And for those patients, we will need to transfer from hospitals in Ukraine to those outside, or day-to-day support for patients staying in Romania. And the support for those who are diagnosed with cancer is essential. So we would also like to help with those people. And the third one is, I was personally shocked by this, but children who had been children who have been experiencing these traumas, and for example, you can hear missiles flying, or you can hear sounds of missiles at night, or videos, and those images are causing trauma to these children. And as I heard these situation, I really could not help myself but to think just supporting those children as well. And so we have a video from the president of Patril, and I would like to share that with you.
Konnichiwa. My name is Kybran Jacobson with the All for Ukraine Global Humanitarian Response and Refugee Support. The first thing I would like to say to you, to the people of Japan, and to Peaceboat Disaster Relief is thank you. Arigato gozaimasu. The support that you have been providing from the very beginning of the war in Ukraine has been of incredible and life-saving importance. At All for Ukraine, we began providing support for refugees coming out of Ukraine from the very first day of the war. We sent immediate shipments of humanitarian supplies, food, and support right to the front where refugees were crossing, but also providing support directly into Ukraine. And Peaceboat Disaster Relief has been with us morally, financially, and in every way to provide humanitarian response from the very beginning of the war. I've just come back from Ukraine. The situation there and the needs are becoming more and more extreme. While much of the world has focused upon the more than 3 million Ukrainians who have been able to move across the border to find protection in Poland, Slovakia, Romania, and elsewhere in Europe and abroad, there are now more than 8 million people who have been displaced inside Ukraine because of the fighting. These are families, children, people of all ages who've been driven from their homes because of the war, seeking shelter in Ukrainian cities which may not themselves be safe, but have at least been less affected. Their needs are urgent. They need medicines, food supplies, and shelter, and this is what we're trying to provide. Your support is saving lives. Thank you for everything you are doing for the people of Ukraine, to help provide humanitarian medical assistance and together to bring an end to this war.
Thank you very much. So we had these words now from Kai, who
We've been
really was such a
really
wonderful partner
getting
and
help
coordinated
from
together so closely with
Patriot
us for
and the president as
our
well.
stay in Romania this time. And we look forward to working together in the long term to support all of the people impacted by the war in Ukraine. As well as, of course, Patria, we would like to express our very sincere thanks to all of the different organizations who worked together. Sorry about the voiceover now as well, but we would like to very much thank all of our partners who coordinated together for our stay in Romania this time, and we look forward to working together with many of you and many more partners as well in the future support as we continue from now as well. So that's the end of our report from here in Romania, and I will pass back over to our MC. Sorry, it seems the MC is on mute. We will just make sure that the sound is coming up. One moment, please. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you very much, both Mr. UESHIMA and Ms. Suzuki, for these messages that you've shared from your stay in Romania. There are people taking action in hope of ending this war, of course, within Ukraine, within the neighboring countries of Poland, Romania, of course, within Russia itself as well. And of course, those of you who are watching this event tonight as well are sharing this hope that this war will end as soon as possible. With the hope, together with all of you, for even doing something to make an improvement in this situation. What each of us may be able to do might be very small, but there is something that each and every one of us can do. Together with Patria, Ms. Kai Brand Jakobsen, who we heard from now as well, has shared that this humanitarian support will connect to peace building efforts in the future for Ukraine and the region as well. Bringing this concrete humanitarian support now, of course, will be a support to people's immediate needs whose lives and livelihoods are threatened by this war, this terrible humanitarian situation which is happening now. But it will also contribute to building peace in this broader world that we all share together as well. I would like to appeal to each and every one of you listening today. The more funds that we can receive will expand what can be done to support those people who are impacted by this war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, there is still a need for more funds and more support. We encourage all of you to make any kind of contribution that you can to the Ukraine Emergency Relief Fund. Well, at the moment, there may be a lot of media reporting and attention about the situation in Ukraine. We will consider that from now, there will be long-term needs. Of course, if the war continues, but even if it is able to be brought to an end, to the long-term support, the recovery, the relief, and the post-conflict situation for building back the communities in Ukraine as well. We would like to ask all of you for your support, both for this current emergency fund and also for other different people who are impacted as well. We also would like to ask those of you who are perhaps tuning in today from different companies. As you have heard today, there is so much different support which is required from now, whether it is support for children, medical care, for people with disabilities, for the elderly. There are many different needs by the impacted communities. And we think that each different country, company, whether it's part of your CSR program or using your own particular expertise, there is a way that you can support these efforts. PBV is working together, and we hope to have more support and donations from different companies, whether in financial or in other material support as well. So if you have any interest about sponsorship or cooperation as a company or corporation, please reach out to us. We would also like to appeal to all of the media representatives who are tuning in today. First of all, thank you so much for sharing the different information from the ground to the people watching and reading your news around the world. Of course, as the situation of this conflict between states and the background and these tensions and so on is important, at the same time, civil society and citizens all around the world connecting together, supporting each other in solidarity to try and make some kind of improvement in the situation. And we would like to reach out to you to also report about these different citizens' initiatives as well. This kind of reporting, as we mentioned, can contribute to bringing some kind of lights of hope for the future, for peace building, and also for building a more peaceful world as well. We also would like to encourage you to continue to share the stories of those who are impacted by the war and those who are supporting them. And thank you for your cooperation in this. We believe that your coverage will help to provide hope for preventing future conflict in the future. We will be continuing to share different updated information on our social media and homepage and so on in both Japanese and English as well. So we would like to invite you to take a look at these different media and follow the situation on the ground and help us to spread the word about the situation and needs as well. To close today's event, we would like to share a slideshow of photographs from our PBV's team visit to Romania, and that will bring today's session to a close. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today, and we look forward to working together with you all to make some kind of a difference for the people impacted by the war in Ukraine and for all of us in the world. Thank you very much.